Okay, here we are again. Do you know, I have a plan at the start of each week or on a Tuesday. I'm like, I'll pick a question, I'll talk about that question, I'll do some prep work with that question. And then I have a conversation with someone at the gym. And I think I'd rather talk about that today because that backwards and forwards conversation with someone was actually felt more appropriate or more useful or could be useful for more people. So, even though I was going to come on here today and talk about some of the questions that were provided, I thought that I'd start with what the title of this is, which is Why Don't People Squat to Depth? Because that was the conversation we were having at the gym this morning. And so, what does that look like? Why don't people squat to depth? Outside of the main reasons, maybe limited by injury or brand new to training, so unable to reach full range of motion, what are the other reasons why people don't squat to depth? So let's say they've got the capacity to, but they choose not to. So I was writing some notes down as to some reasons why that might be. And I was thinking about it, and it's like lack of awareness. Maybe they don't realize that full range of motion squats are the most beneficial squats that you can perform. And achieving full range of motion before adding load is going to roll over to better strength, better hypertrophy, better joint health, better mobility in the long term compared to doing squats that aren't full range of motion. The other thing, so awareness, whether or not they've got a PT or a coach that's supporting them with what they're doing. So that also can come to awareness. But if the person squatting doesn't know where they're meant to squat to, they've never been taught what full range of motion is, they don't understand that there's a standard for a squat, then that's where the coach or the personal trainer would come into play there. So is the coach letting them down for their own lack of awareness or their want or desire or emotional feelings of, I don't want to upset this person by giving them a very objective reference point as to what the goal would be. Hello, Grant. Here's another reason why someone might not squat full range of motion, so to the standard that a squat would be. I want more weight on the bar. So this would come down to ego. I want to be able to put as much weight on the bar as possible. Therefore, I can't go all the way down full range of motion into squat depth because it's physically too heavy for me to travel through all of that. It's harder to travel full range of motion with heavier weights. Physically harder. If you were to do a quarter squat with 100 kilos, it would be significantly easier than doing a full range of motion squat with 100 kilos. That is just weight traveling longer distances, therefore more work completed across that full range of motion into the squat. Now, there are points in life, training, whatever, if you've got certain goals, potentially partial squats might be useful. But I think the important thing to remember here is if you are performing partial squats, that's what they are. They are partial squats. So for the people out there that sort of say, there's videos that we see all the time, just in general, the algorithm pushes them to me because it seems to know that I don't like people who don't squat full range of motion and claim to get a new PB on a back squat that only goes down a quarter. I've found that the Instagram algorithm likes to just push those things to me. So in terms of that, if you are doing a partial squat, it's called a partial squat. No one's claiming that a partial squat isn't an appropriate training tool for high power force at the top end range or heavy load lockout force at the top end of a squat. The problem comes when people are claiming that they're PBing their back squat, front squat, whatever it might be, with a load that hasn't actually allowed them to travel full range of motion. So what actually are you training for? Are you just training to say things look good, feel good? So when we talk about why people don't squat to depth, as I mentioned, awareness. If you don't know where you're traveling to in your squats, how do you work that out? Video yourself. Ask someone to look. The standard for a squat across all of the sports is hip crease lower than the level of the knee. So fully past that point and then coming back up out of it. And then depending on the sport you're in, that might mean that you are training all the way down as close to ass to grass as possible, or maybe you're just stopping below parallel and then coming out of that. So really it depends there. Grant's commented, thank you. Get a good coach. You don't even have to be a good coach. A coach that understands that for your training and for your personal growth and your goals, full range of motion movement and being aware of what that is and giving you feedback is what's required. So you can just be a coach that understands that, and I guess that would make you a good coach. But as I was saying, if it's about awareness, you're not sure, get someone to watch you, film yourself. If it's about the coach, ask them, can you please watch my depth? Can you please tell me where it's at? I think the biggest concern, as I said, could be that the coach doesn't want to tell you you didn't do something. And so they let it go and they don't mention it to you. And so you think that you've achieved whatever you thought you were achieving, and the coach hasn't said anything or the personal trainer hasn't said anything, and therefore you believe. So you believe that you've done what you need to do, and that's that lack of awareness that's there from both the coach and the person doing the work. Now, as I said, it is harder. If your ego is too big for that, you will not want to reduce weight to travel full range of motion, because you will believe that you've got a certain weight that you can squat. However, if you can't perform, again, that full range of motion, is your back squat 1RM truly your back squat 1RM? Did you travel all the way down, hips lower than the knee crease, or did you do a partial squat, therefore your 1RM back squat is actually a 1RM partial squat, which are two very different things. I think the other issue is, why don't people squat to depth? There's so many people out there. And again, is it awareness? Is it just like, I don't want this person to feel bad, but letting people not squat to depth and not saying anything about it? So I'm going to bring up a video that we watched, I think it was yesterday, which is actually really interesting. So Jessie James West, we watched this video and I couldn't believe that they let this pass. Now, hopefully the audio is working and you can hear it. So maybe if you're in the chat, you can tell me if you can't hear it.
Did not expect them to go this heavy, 5 plates. I've never seen a woman do this, and I think we're about to see it for the first time, at least for me. Just a casual 5, something I've never done in my life. Me.
And so they're on here making comments about, now this lady is strong. Granted, that is the case. Jessie James West is saying, I've never done 5 plates before. Here's something that's incredible to me. This is amazing.
Neither, but we're going to get it today.
This lady's saying, I've never done this before. So this would be an attempt at a PB for her.
Wait, you've never done this?
No.
Please be careful. Come on. I'm right here. She's shaking.
She's got to go down.
Now, there were a couple of lifts prior to this that were lighter loads. The depth that she went to here was just above parallel, but this is the kind of thing, what happens next is what is probably happening and people are mostly seeing out in the world.
Drive. Oh, that was...
I'll just go back 5 seconds. So that's her bottom position there, and it is very, very clear that her hip crease is significantly higher than the height of her knees. Now, what happens next is the bit that's crazy. If Jessie James West wasn't making a YouTube video that was trying to get clicks, he probably would have, if this is one-on-one PT or coaching with someone, he probably would have said something. But if you leave this sort of stuff in YouTube videos, it generates comments, generates engagement, generates just disgust from people or like props from other people. So
Drive. Oh, that was all you. PR, come up front. Oh.
And then he celebrates with her. PR, it was the first time she'd ever lifted that weight. Now, I wonder whether she's going to come back to this video, watch it when it went live, or whether she watched it back afterwards and whether she said to herself, I can't count that as a PR. That's my PR now. I'm accepting that. This is what we did. Everyone said it was good, so I'm going with that.
All hail! All hail, jacked woman! 495
Thank you,
PR.
dog.
Yo, respect.
Thank you.
Respect. However,
So that's the interesting thing. It was very clear in there where she got through to.
drive.
And then they all celebrated it as if it was a PR. She hasn't traveled full range of motion. Does she normally travel full range of motion? In the world of a standard squat depth, that wouldn't have counted, and none of the ones she did prior would have counted. So it would be really interesting to know what her true 1RM is. But also in saying that, I'm not saying she's not strong. Like 225 kilos to even go down in a partial squat is insane. There's a lot of leg strength there, but what is her true potential through full range of motion? What is her true strength in that area? Eilish in the chat, hello, thanks for your comment. I personally think that coaches a lot of the time either don't care or actually don't know what a full depth squat is. And I would agree with that. I would say outside of the CrossFit space or anyone that's trained within the CrossFit realm, I am very strongly in agreement with that. They probably don't understand what a full depth squat is because no one calls it a full depth squat. It gets referred to as a squat. Air squat, back squat, front squat, but it's never called a full depth squat because the standard and the expectation is that it is full depth, full range of motion, all the way down, hips lower than the knees, all the way back up to extension. In terms of coaches not caring, again, this is where I think it comes down to awareness or them feeling like they don't want to upset anybody. They think that if they just, you did something incredible because you did the movement with a heavy weight, that's what we're rewarding. And I think in the CrossFit space, you find it more often than not, or maybe not in the CrossFit space. Maybe there's a few rare situations where there are PTs or trainers out there that really are holding you to the standards so that you can compare over time where you're going to. So it's not that maybe they don't care. Maybe they think that they care by saying, yay, good job to you, even if it wasn't to a standard. Whoa. That was a fun effect. I don't know how that happened. So maybe it's more about they think they're caring, but actually care is in relentless pursuit of the best possible movement standards and building towards that. Eilish said he needs to come out and correct this, and that would be in reference to Jesse James West. But like I said, he probably doesn't care. I don't know what his squats are like normally. Maybe he is also under the understanding that this is squats to depth and that is acceptable and that is the standard that he works off, which isn't the squat standard. But if 99% of the world are under the understanding that they think that's acceptable, no one's arguing against them except a couple of people in the comments. I know when I did my Pilates training, I would get so frustrated with the squat technique. And so this is what we were talking about at the gym this morning. One of the members said they had a bit of preseason netball training, and it was led by the coaches, the captains, whoever it was led by, and they might go to your standard gyms, F45, BodyFit, stuff like that, and they were doing squats. And this member was saying, they might have been doing 10 air squats, and in the space of them doing 3 or 4, her and another girl who had trained CrossFit prior, so understand that squatting full range of motion is how to squat. They might have done 3 or 4 squats to the 10 squats someone else had done to a partial range, so that quarter squat position, and there being no requirement for full range of motion. Now, if you're in netball preseason, what are you doing squats for? In my opinion, it would be to train full range of motion, to build strength and joint health so that when you enter the netball season, your joints are as strong as they possibly can be. And if you're not training them through full ranges of motion, it is really hard for your joints to be strong. Whoop. Add to stage, make that bigger. If you're not traveling through full ranges of motion, it's really hard for your joints to be strong and stable through full ranges of motion. So you get out on the netball court and you extend further through your partial squat than you normally do, and you don't have the ability to control that, and knees get done, or similar things, ankles go over, or just positioning in general puts you into bad movement patterns when you're out on the court, and you run into someone, you land funny. So you should always be training full range of motion to build as much strength and stability and joint health as possible, so that your body is capable of handling whatever you throw at it to the best of its ability. If you don't even train it, you've got no hope. So I guess it comes down to that term of, if you don't use it, you lose it. But if you have lost it, you can definitely regain it. So yeah, does the world even know how to squat? Is it exclusive to people who do powerlifting, people who do weightlifting, and people who do CrossFit? Are you maybe watching and you go to a functional fitness gym, a BFT, an F45, a group fitness class? How do you do your squats? Is there this expectation that you are chasing full range of motion squats, or is it just wherever you can get to, you get to? And the thing with that too is, if we have a new person coming to the gym, no one's expecting them to squat full range of motion to start with. Like, if you don't have the capacity to get there, we're not going to force you into that position. But over time, we're going to build you and strengthen you to that position. So this is where like a box squat or a target to squat to is useful, because objectively, as a person, if you're doing a box squat, you know the same reference point you're going to every single time for every single squat that you do. And that gives you data to measure yourself from. Maybe you use for example, a 16-inch box to squat to for your first month of CrossFit training while you're learning to squat closer to full range of movement. Then after month 1, you've got enough strength that we can progress down. 16 inches becomes 14 inches. A month later, 14 inches, the height of the box off the ground, becomes 12 inches. So we're decreasing your depth by 2 inches at a time. 12 inches becomes 10 inches. 10 inches for most people is probably definitely below parallel, unless you've got significantly short legs. And so by that point, over the space of 2, 3, 4 months, you've built strength to certain ranges of motion, and then you've challenged yourself by increasing it further, increasing it further, increasing it further. Now, for some people, it could take 2 years to get a full range of motion squat, and that doesn't mean that you shouldn't be aiming for it. It should always be the aim. Ideally, to be able to perform an air squat to full depth is more impressive for your leg strength than adding load to a bar and doing partial squats. Top end strength, top end power in that partial squat position is much easier to achieve, or it's easier to look like you're lifting heavier than what it is to take that weight and travel all the way down through full range of motion and all the way back up. So at the end of all of that, why don't people squat to depth? They don't squat to depth because it's hard. But isn't that why we're training? Aren't we training to be better? To be better, don't we need to challenge ourselves? If it is hard, it could become easier just by challenging yourself, getting stronger, adapting to that hard thing, and then progressing from there. It's like that classic saying of CrossFit never gets easier, you just get better, and then you go harder, faster, heavier, whatever it might be. So people don't squat to depth because it's hard. People don't squat to depth because of ego. People don't squat to depth because they've got no idea what squatting to depth is. People don't squat to depth because maybe they think they are, but the person who's meant to be watching them and holding them to a standard either doesn't realize what that standard is, or thinks that they're being nice by saying, that's good, that's fine, that's okay, that's enough, when in fact that person does have the capacity to travel full range of motion and should be traveling full range of motion. And at the end of the day, and in particular, this is why CrossFit is observable, measurable, and repeatable. There are standards in CrossFit so that everyone performs something that they can come back to. Oh, I've done it again. Something that they can come back to one day. They've observed it once. It is repeatable because there's standards applied to it, and you can measure it. Because if I said to you, we're just doing partial squats, how do I know if you go down 2 inches for the first 5 reps, 6 inches for the next few reps, 4 inches for the ones after that? And so therefore there's no standard, no tracking, no idea of what it has or hasn't been that you have actually done. And then how do you repeat that in the future? How do you know if you got better if you can't measure it? If there are any questions, comments, obviously it's live now, so you can comment in there. If you've got something, you can put it at the in the comment section once the live is over. Outside of that, I did tell Dano I'd answer one of his questions. I just need to find it. I can't remember where I put it. What did he say to me? There was actually 2 questions. Question number 1, how can I improve on lifts or activities that tax my CNS, so central nervous system, a lot, e.g. deadlifts? Is it a matter of exposure, or is there something else I should do to train those movements? So this is an interesting one because just knowing a bit more about what Dane's up to, if I was to give him a simple answer to this, it's probably got to do with recovery at the moment. And so when you're more fatigued, your central nervous system with like maximal loads gets fried sooner or isn't as prepared to start with. And so everything feels harder or heavier or potentially slower. You know, as an example, picking a deadlift up one day when you're fresh you might stand up and it might feel great. And then if your CNS is fried, picking that deadlift up might be a slow slog to stand it up. So how can you improve on lifts that tax your CNS? It can be a little bit about exposure, but that exposure, you have to think about it in terms of like, how regularly might I be doing deadlifts? And say going heavy once a week would be absolutely the most you would do, but spending some time around some percentages that are on the lower side, say that 70 to 80% for more reps, will give your body a chance to like work before that fatigue hits, but work harder and faster, more powerfully, or whatever it might be in that moment, which will train you over time. So a little bit about exposure, but more so about like, where's your recovery at? What are you actually doing? Are you 1 RM deadlifting every single day? In which case, it's probably not the most ideal way to go about training those deadlifts. Or is there something else I should do to train those movements? Varying it up, a single leg, barbell deadlift, you know, that can help because you can get a lot of effective work, say, out of a tempo lift or a single dumbbell, single leg deadlift that is light on the body but still fatiguing without taxing the central nervous system. If you're just maxing out 90+% for multiple reps week in, week out, this is where your body, if you're feeling your central nervous system essentially being fatigued, this is where that recovery is going to become more important for you. So recovery is probably, or the volume that you're doing is too much for what you want to be doing. Hope that was helpful. Might have been a little bit of word salad. Lucky camera straps. Sorry I missed the start. We'll listen back later. Thanks for your comment. Now, the second portion of Dane's question. Dane's training for an Ironman. That Ironman is 8 weeks away. He's also doing CrossFit. So his questions are quite specific on, like, how do I do everything? Multi-training, so this is the second part of Dane's question. Multi-training in conjunction with CrossFit. Should I prioritize one over the other based off goals? And which one should I train first on multi-training days? So which one is the priority for you? And the answer is yes, that one should be your priority over the other one. If you have an Ironman coming up, that should take priority over your CrossFit training. And what that means is you should, again, it all comes down to recovery, because if you can't recover, you can't continue to put in the work required. Everything just starts to slowly break down and you can't perform the way you want to perform. Now, when it comes to which one should I train first on multi-training days, again, which one is your goal? If the goal is the Ironman, do the Ironman work first. Understand that you're going to come into CrossFit fatigued or already worn down or on your second session, and know that scaling or tapering back will be the most important thing for you to be able to continue to prioritize your Ironman training. What you don't want to do is come into your Ironman training going 100%. And then in that same day, say your afternoon session, you come into CrossFit and you train at 100%, but you don't have time to recover and fully recover before the next session and the next session and the next session and the next session. So for a period of time, if the Ironman is the priority, then that training takes priority. You can absolutely continue to supplement with the CrossFit, but you just have to know that that supplement that you're doing is that it's a supplement. You're not going high intensity or 100% like you would if you weren't doing all of the additional training. It's almost like you're just trying to do a bit of maintenance through your CrossFit as a way to keep your fitness at a level that it's at while prioritizing the Ironman. Matt says, great question, Dane. And that's because Matt is also doing that same training. And so if you know that you've got it's really easy to have a conversation backwards and forwards to ask these questions. As an example, I know that Dane on a Tuesday morning does speed work running wise at the athletics track, and then he'll come into the CrossFit class after that. Now, if the speed work is the priority for his goal, he should put 100% of his effort into that. When he comes into CrossFit, then we're looking at, all right, you're already pre-fatigued. How do we manage the volume we give you and the intensity we give you to allow you not to burn yourself to the ground in this next session, and then be able to recover, fuel, sleep, general like soreness, to be able to rinse and repeat for the continual training that comes day after day. So yeah, I hope that answers that too. Multi-training in conjunction with CrossFit. Should I prioritize one over the other based off goals? Yes. If you try and prioritize both of them, you'll essentially just go forward slowly in both of them. Considering the fact that the Ironman has a date that's coming up, it would be the priority. Put all of your focus and effort into that and just supplement with your CrossFit. Nothing wrong with going lighter and working at higher intensities with lower loads to still maintain those fitness levels. Has anyone else got any questions? I mean, Matt's in there saying, great question, Dane. If Matt's still there, does he have any other questions? How is your reading going? Are you able to fuel yourself enough for the additional training that you're doing? Just having a quick look through some of the other questions that I've got to see if there's a quick one I can probably finish up with. Otherwise, I might call it there. I'm driving, sorry. That's fine, Matt. How dare you be texting and driving? Well, in that case, how do you know how much extra training you can add? So Lucky Camershot said the question, how do you know how much extra training you can add? The best way to do this is slowly add to your routine, or pay close attention to how you're feeling, say, as the week progresses. If you have been a 3-day-a-week CrossFit person and no additional stuff, you can try a 4th day a week. If things are feeling good, you can try a 5th day a week the following week. If you're someone who does CrossFit 6 days a week or 5 or 6 days a week, and you've signed up to an Ironman, jumping straight into full Ironman training as well as 6 days a week CrossFit is probably, well, it's double the load and a massive increase in volume, even if, or time that your body spends working, even if the intensity is low in the Ironman training that you're doing to start with. So my advice would be just bit by bit, add it in. If you're on some sort of time crunch where the Ironman takes priority because there's less time to get there, prioritize the Ironman training, drop back the CrossFit training, and supplement it where it feels appropriate. How do you know how much extra training you can add? Your body will tell you if you're doing too much, and it will scream for a rest day. Now, sometimes those rest days are, I'm really tired and fatigued, and that might be about fueling better to maintain volume. And sometimes it's the body saying, I'm so tired, I need a really easy swim, light walk, total rest to feel better and wake up fresher and recovered tomorrow. And it's all person dependent. Some people have a higher tolerance to volume and intensity. Other people have a lower tolerance to volume and intensity. And that can come down to training lifetime as well. Matt, if my training per week was to increase significantly, maybe say 750 to 1500 calories some days, how much should I prioritize sleep and recovery on top of my training? It should be at the top of the priority list. So this is where it's interesting. It's like, if you're not sleeping, you can't recover. Your recovery happens while you're asleep. If you don't eat enough, you can't recover. Recovery happens while you're asleep. If you don't have enough fuel to recover, instead of staying consistent along this line, bit by bit, we just wear ourselves down, down, down. And then maybe we have a day that brings us back up a little bit. We have a good sleep and it brings us back up a little bit. But remember, we started up here and we've only come back up a fraction, and then we go down and down and down again, and then we come up a little bit. And you end up burnt out, or injuries occur, or other issues occur. So if your training per week has increased significantly, if you can match the calorie output with the calorie input, you'll be doing your best in terms of fueling there to maximize recovery. But if your sleep is getting affected by the volume of training you're doing, I would consider bringing the training back just a little bit. You're going to get more benefit out of sleeping properly, recovering well, and being able to apply more effort or intensity into that next training session than what you'll get out of a broken sleep or significantly less sleep, which then affects the recovery that your body was able to do overnight, which then affects your ability to put effort into your training, which then affects the total outcome at the end. So if it has increased significantly and your sleep has regressed, that would be one of the first things I would fix up. Now, what does that mean? Does that mean you might have to just cut it down for 5 days, a week, 2 weeks, lower the intensity, lower the total volume, just to allow your body to recover back up to that point? And then you start the process again. Wear it down, build it back up. Wear it down, build it back up. That would be my suggestion there. But if you are burning 1,500 calories extra on some days, just make sure that you're fueling enough for that, because the last thing you want is to be underfueled. And when you underfuel, you under-recover, and that is the greater risk of injury. Underfueling mixed with poor recovery, mixed with total volume that your body might be doing in that moment. What else? What else? If anyone's in the chat and they've got a question they want to ask, feel free to. Again, I'm just going to quickly whiz through the questions I've got on my document here to see if there's anything that pops up. The other thing I will say is the CrossFit Open registrations are live. So jump on to the CrossFit.com website and sign up for the Open. It's actually really exciting this year. The first ever workout posted on CrossFit.com happened in February 2001. So this year marks 25 years of free workouts being published online every single week for 25 years. So that's a pretty cool thing to consider that CrossFit's been providing free workouts to the world, as long as you've got access to the internet, online since February 2001, which is crazy to think, because what did gyms look like in 2001? Was there functional space there? Were there Olympic lifting bars? Could you dump things on the floor? Back in 2001, I was only 10 years old, so I wouldn't even know what the inside of a gym looked like. All right, I'm going to call it there. If you've got any questions you think of later on, comment them below after the fact. Like, subscribe, tell your friends. I'm still practicing. I was saying this morning to Beck at the gym, it's really interesting. My brain sometimes stops working when I'm just talking to myself, whereas versus a conversation backwards and forwards with someone feels much easier. So this is giving me practice to just let myself sit with my thoughts, unpack my thoughts, talk about things that pop up, try and explain them in as simple terms as possible to anyone who might be listening. And hopefully it's helpful. Even if just one small bit of it is helpful to you, or it prompts another question that could be helpful to you, then that's helpful for me too. So thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to sign up for the Open. And that's it.